Hi everyone, Brian Gavin here on behalf of Offaly County Library who are celebrating the Bealtaine Festival. Today I'm going to be joined by Joe Dooley, famous GA man down through the years, played in 6 and won 3. Joe Dooley, you're very welcome.
Thank you very much, Brian. Delighted to be here to support the Offaly County Library Bealtaine Festival. So delighted to be here.
Talk to me about your experience growing up down in a little parish in Clarine, one of the smallest parishes in Ireland, and your memories growing up.
I suppose from a hurling point of view, or even growing up in Clarine, like we were farmers. My father was Sean Dooley, my mother Betty, came from a farming background. There was 9 of us in the family, 5 boys and 4 girls. Very happy memories growing up. We had great crack, and I suppose, like when you came home from school in the evening, you had your jobs to do, and that was all part of it. And every Saturday you were working on the farm as well. So the father got as much as he could out of it for as long as he could until we got sense and moved on, a lot of us. But I had a very happy childhood and growing up in Clarine. And I suppose the big thing for me really was, like, from the time I could nearly walk, hurling was my thing, and I had a hurl with me everywhere I went.
And why was that? Like, what was that what everyone else was doing in the parish, or what was it in your family going back, or what was the?
Yeah, it would, Brian. Yeah, like I suppose the first thing, it kind of has to be in you yourself anyway, and want to do it. And I suppose I would be dragging a hurl if we were going to the field to Tinbeat, or no matter where we were going, I had a hurl with me. But it was ingrained into it. Like my grandfather Jim Carroll played in the 1915 All-Ireland final with Offaly, Junior All-Ireland final, and his brother Joe Carroll played in it as well. And my granduncle then on my father's side, Tom Dooley, would have played in the 1929 Junior All-Ireland final. So
the breeding was there?
Yeah, on both sides. And my uncles then would have hurled and won championships with Coolderry, Billy and Tom Carroll. And, so it was... And my father won junior and intermediate championships with Clarine as well, and his brother Joe and Kieran and Billy. So, like, hurling was part of our DNA. And and working with my father on the farm, all we talk about was hurling, like in matches, and what the matches that were gone and the ones that were coming up and the ones that were played in the past. And so
and on your mother's side, in the Coolderry side, again, hurling stronghold as well, and her brothers, as you said, fantastic hurlers. Yeah, so you had it on both sides.
Kind of had it on both sides, and when we'd go on holidays to Coolderry up to Dromile, we'd always go up for a few weeks every summer to help out on the farm up there, and all they talked about was hurling as well, and county finals that they won and lost, and games that they won, and so you were sort of it was bred into you, like, yeah, you just
and that time, like, to go outside, that's what you had. You had a hurl or a football up this end maybe, or whatever, and that was it. There was no PlayStations, no phones, no nothing like that. No, simple everyday stuff.
Yeah, simple life. And there was no, like, television. You had one channel maybe, or two. So hurling was all we had. And like, when I was young, I used to go to Connor's, lived out at the end of our lane. Paddy and Jim and Ger and Tom and Kieran. There was 5 lads in that family, and myself and Seamus and Kieran, and there was Coughlin's and Mulroney's and Bergen. So we'd all go to Connor's house. That was the kind of the gathering place, and we'd hurl from morning to night, really. Like, we'd go over Sunday morning, Sunday afternoon and Sunday evening, and even during the week. So hurling was all, it was all we knew, really, and you'd kick a bit of football when you get bored at the hurling, but it was generally hurling was what we played.
So you were obviously on the outskirts of Burr, and Burr that time were hosting some memorable matches.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like my father used to bring us to Burr nearly every Sunday. It would be either club games or county games, and that was the focal point of the week, to make sure we get to Burr to see the games. And like, I can remember seeing All-Ireland semi-finals in Burr in 1971, 72, 73. I can remember Babs Keaton scoring a great goal against Galway in his bare feet in 71, and Eddie Kerr and John Connolly and Kieran Purcell, Pat Delaney. Kilkenny had a brilliant team that time, and the semi-finals, All-Ireland semi-finals, were all played in Burr. And then even watching Offaly, Damien Martin and Barney Milan and Pádraig Horn and Johnny Flaherty and all those guys.
All legends.
And when you'd get home in the evening after watching them in Burr, you'd be poking stones till dark, imagining that you were one of those lads.
And again, simple stuff, like, there wouldn't be, like, young lads today could have 5 or 6 litters. Yeah. That time, you might have one in the family.
Oh, that's all, yeah. And when Barney Milan used to take the frees for Offaly, that time he poked them up in the clouds, and they generally they'd be gone too far to come back. So all the young fellas would be going racing, scattering to get them. So a slitter that time was an invaluable.
So a great upbringing, Joe, and like, just talk to the people about maybe the late 70s before Offaly made the breakthrough in 81. You know, for people that would like to remember that, you know, Offaly had no All-Ireland in hurling, but Kem and probably, you know, foundations from minor teams and different, but a great breakthrough in 81, you know, fill in the people maybe the late 70s, early 80s.
Yeah, like I suppose from the mid 70s on, Offaly got into Division 1 at the National Hurling League, and they maintained their status in that league. But even though we were in Division 1, like everyone used to keep saying, come championship time, we'll run out of steam and Kilkenny will beat us handy. But then in 1980, it all happened for us, you know, out of the blue. Offaly were huge underdogs going into that Leinster final against Kilkenny, and obviously the form in the league transferred to the championship for the first time ever and beat Kilkenny. But that was, you know, it was a great bunch of lads there that time, and they had been together for 4 or 5 years. And like the excitement, I remember when Offaly won the first Leinster, meeting my granduncle Tom Dooley, who I said had played in the 1929 All-Ireland the next morning, and he said he was in his mid 70s at the time, and he said he never thought he'd see the day that Offaly would win a Leinster Senior Hurling Championship. He had lived for 75 years and we never had been really close to one. Yes. Suddenly we win one. So that'll give you a kind of an idea of the level of euphoria. So
there was a bounce factor when the 1980 Leinster final victory over Kilkenny, things started to snowball and belief started to happen.
Yeah, without a doubt, yeah. And I suppose obviously Galway beat us in the 80 All-Ireland semi-final, and then we got back and won the Leinster again in 81, beating Wexford, and then got to the All-Ireland final and beat Galway. So, but there was great belief in that team, and I suppose Dermot Healy came in from Kilkenny to manage the team, and the big thing that he always instilled was self-belief, that Offaly were no different to Kilkenny or anyone else. It was just we were just wearing a different coloured jersey. We were as good as anybody else.
You touched on it there a second ago, Joe, about belief. Like a lot of people will have seen the 1981 All-Ireland, and for long periods of that game, Galway looked to be in cruise control, but there didn't seem to be any panic from Offaly. They kept chipping away and chipping away. Was that the belief that you're talking about?
Yeah, well, I'd say, yeah, it was, Brian, yeah. And it was just, that would have come, as I say, from Dermot Healy, believing that we'd be in front at the finish line. And, you know, but as I said, like, there was great players in that team. And, you know, they obviously continued on into the mid-80s, most of them, and even maybe towards the end of the 80s. But it was, but the excitement at that time was unbelievable. Like, it was just...
So fill us in on your own emotion that time. You're ready. You're not that far off it. You're a young man. All you want to do is hurling the green, white and gold. You want to be in these Leinster finals. It wasn't too... You hadn't to wait too long.
No, I got my... I suppose maybe before that, I'd gone to school in Burren. It was 5 years in the college in Burren. In those 5 years, we never lost a college's game. And prior to that, we had never won a Leinster Colleges Championship. So there was a kind of an undercurrent.
A group coming, yeah.
Yeah, there was groups coming, and confidence was growing with Offaly as well. So, but then in 1982, I got called for a trial game against Westmeath on Easter Monday, 1982, the 12th of April, down in Drumraney. And it was against Westmeath. Offaly were All-Ireland champions, obviously, at the time. And I'll never forget walking into the dressing room with Eugene Coughlin and Tony Murphy. We drove down together and seen Pádraig Horn and Joachim Kelly and Aidan Fogarty and all those fellas, Pat Flory and Pat Delaney and the Corrigans and Gerard Coughlin.
And here you are talking out.
Here I am in the dressing room talking out with him, and I was picked corner forward that day beside Pádraig Horn, and I scored a goal in 2 points, and
you were happy.
I was happy enough. And there was a huge crowd at the game because Offaly were Ireland champions, and they were a huge draw. But
Westmeath would have having a decent team that time.
They had a decent team. I was marking a guy by the name of Noel Fitzsimons that day, who was no slouch, you know.
Yeah.
Like they actually beat us that day with a last minute goal. I think Kevin Lynch scored a last minute goal. But
Kevin, a great hurling man.
That's right. That's right. So. But once I got in on the panel, then, you know, 1982, Kilkenny beat us in the Leinster final. That was a huge disappointment, and broke my hand in 83, and then I probably got a real good run I had in 84 then, so that was kind of the start.
Yeah, one of your, you know, when people when Joe Dooley's name came to light was the 84 semi-final against Galway.
That's right.
Where you found onion bag a couple of times.
I did, all right, yeah. It was one of those days where kind of everything went right for me, but 84, in 84 we got to the Centenary All-Ireland, or to the Centenary Cup semi-final. Cork beat us in the semi-final, and we should have won that game, and Cork went on and beat Laois in the final, but then we had a good run in Leinster and beaten Wexford in the Leinster final, and went on to play Galway and Thurles, and as you said, I had a great day that day. I think I scored 2-3 or something, but missed about 2-3 as well, but
Yeah.
it was just great times.
The final of 84 was disappointing. Cork turned us over fairly handily, but as it's widely spoken about, when Offaly, the homecoming, they got in 84, even though they were beaten, and Pádraig Horn promising, I think it was, that wouldn't happen next year.
Yeah.
Just fill us in on the disappointment in 84.
Yeah, 84 was like, it was the centenary All-Ireland final, Brian. It was the biggest and most, I suppose, publicised All-Ireland it was ever played. It was in Thurles, and we just didn't do ourselves justice. Even though when you look back on the game at half time, I think the sides were level, and we just didn't turn up at all in the second half, and we just didn't probably turn up in general, really. We let ourselves down, we let the supporters down, so we knew that, and we made a commitment after that All-Ireland to try and get back in 85 to win it. And I suppose it's easy to say those things at the time, but in 85 then we played Kilkenny in the first round, and we were 9 points down shortly after half time in the first round of the Leinster Championship against Kilkenny, and we managed to pull them back and drew with them, and we beat them then in the replay, I think 18 points to 11 or something. But then once we got on the road in 85 then and got nearer and nearer to the All-Ireland, everybody got determined to kind of fulfil our promise, and sure enough we did that. We beat Galway in the All-Ireland final. I think we beat them by 3 points, but
it could have been 5, 6 or 7.
5 or 6, and I think if Galway scored another 3, we'd have scored another 3. But that was a second All-Ireland for nearly most of that.
And it's your first, Joe.
It's my first,
and
yeah.
You're going back to a house with an All-Ireland medal, where they're steeped in tradition, and
a
proud moment for you and your parents.
Sure, it was, of course, Brian, yeah, and for everybody, and for the parish and the club and for the family, and to win an All-Ireland is a massive. It's what I suppose it's every player's dream.
And then, Johnny is there and Billy, and that's some lift for them, and Kieran and Seamus. Like, it is some lift for a house.
Yeah, it is indeed, yeah. And at club level, we were starting to get going as well at that time. We got to the county final in 85, actually, and Kinnity beat as well, but we had a lot of young fellas. But, as you say, Billy and Johnny and Seamus and Kieran were all, I suppose, watching this and coming behind. And like the following year in 86, Billy won a minor All-Ireland, and 87, Billy and Johnny won minor All-Ireland. So it was kind of coming, and it was all feeding into it,
And then Offaly won a couple of minors in 87, maybe 88, that type of era, and with another group of players coming, but we had to wait a nice few years to 94.
We had, yeah. You see, they played in 2 or 3 under-21 All-Irelands in 89, 91, 92, in that intervening period, and didn't get over the line. They got to the finals, but didn't win them. But I suppose we won Leinster's in 88 and 89 and 90, and won a league in 91. We were kind of tipping away without ever really threatening to win an All-Ireland. And then in 94, it all fell into place, really. Eamon Cregan came in, and Derry O'Donovan, and I suppose the minors and the under-21s of the late 80s, early 90s, I suppose, were starting to come into their prime age-wise and hurling-wise.
But from a personal point of view, now Johnny and Billy were coming on the scene as well.
Yeah, and you had all Michael Dignan, Daithí Regan, Martin Hanaway, with Brian
Hugh Ridney,
all those lads, so Joe Erity, and they all kind of were all of the one age, and they were coming strong. Johnny Pilkington, and so they kind of it just everything fell into place for us in 94.
I suppose everything fell into place in 94, but 93, I was at that game, and how Kilkenny beat us was a mystery, because Offaly hurled Kilkenny off the park, a last minute free, and DJ buried it in the back of the net. Right. That must have been heartbreaking, but the signs were there that Offaly were coming again.
Yeah, they were indeed, yeah. And I suppose in 94 we had kind of 93 was Eamon Cregan's first year, and I suppose he got our fitness levels up, but it was really only in 94 that everything kind of fell into place. Kilkenny were going for 3 All-Irelands in a row, and I suppose we kind of hammered them really in the first round, and we beat Wexford in the final, and Galway, and then the famous one against Limerick. So, but it was great. That was great for the club as well. Like Kevin Keenan was involved, and Johnny and Billy and myself, and great for us as well.
And something similar to 81, 94 was very similar. We were out hurled for long periods, but that belief didn't die, and we just kept going, and it was a remarkable 6 or 7 minutes.
It was, yeah. I suppose it's one of the All-Irelands that everybody remembers still to this day, and I still always keep saying we were a lot better than Limerick, but we just didn't kind of get going until there was a nice breeze that day as well that was with Offaly in the second half that maybe wasn't that noticeable from the stand, but I suppose Johnny's goal was the turning point, and then Pat O'Connor, and then the floodgates open.
Yeah.
But like we contested we can either contested an All Ireland in the 90s, or whoever beat us won the All Ireland. So we were right through the whole 90s. We were there or thereabouts. You know, I think we were.
And then, unfortunately, you know, that was a great, again, I remember the scenes on board in 94 after winning, but, you know, come to 95 then and feelings were high again, and a bit of a downer, Clare beating us in the last minute.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like sure, we were within sort of 3 or 4 minutes of putting back-to-back All Irelands, and that's one regret you'd have, that we just didn't get over the line. But we had a great win against Kilkenny in the Leinster final, and that was a hugely memorable day. And even the final, it was just one of those games that just got away on us.
And again, there was a period of that second half that we missed 3 or 4 chances. We got them, you would say you were home and dry, but that's the way it goes.
Yeah, and it's just the way it goes, you know, like you're kind of, you win some, you lose some, you know. And even like the year before in 94, just I suppose about 2-3 weeks before that All Ireland, I fell off a bicycle with my daughter 18, and we were out for a cycle, and I actually broke my wrist bone, or fractured my wrist. So probably in normal circumstances, I'd have missed that All Ireland. If it was any other game, barring All Ireland, you would have missed it. So,
the injuries do dry up for big games.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and Brendan Lee, in fairness to him, strapped me up and gave me painkilling injections, and I got to play in that All Ireland, and forever thankful to him.
And I suppose moving along to probably one of the most famous years in the history of hurling was 98. The amount of things that happened in 98. You know, Offaly weren't going well. We lost the manager. It all happened in 98, didn't it?
It did, yeah. Like 98 was a fierce up and down year altogether, you know, from start to finish, like with Babs Keaton coming in at the start of the year. And, you know, we were going, you know, he in fairness to him, we had trained fierce hard in 98, harder than we ever trained, I'd say, to be honest. And but I suppose the style of hurling that we were playing wasn't our style of hurling. It was kind of running and kind of possession game rather than moving the ball quick. So obviously Babs parted ways with us after the Leinster final, and then obviously Michael Bond came in, and so kind of the rest is history. But in the 3 games with Clare down in Thurles, and the final game in Thurles, and the All Ireland final, beating Kilkenny in a final as well.
What was your emotion, Joe, after the second game when Jimmy Cooney made a mistake and blew it there? What was your emotion in the dressing room after, or when you heard people from Offaly were sitting in the field? What was going through your head and the players' heads that day?
Well, like when the final whistle went in the second game, I just assumed full time had been played. Yes. To be honest, I was oblivious to the fact that he blew up early. But once we got up we went up into the lounge for a drink after the game, and then when you looked out and saw all the Offaly supporters on the field, like I said to myself, there has to be a replay here, you know, and if there is, we're going to have some crowd behind us. And sure enough, there was.
But it gave you great encouragement to look out them glass windows in Croke Park and see maybe 5,000 or 6,000 Offaly supporters sitting on the pitch.
Yeah, like we thought we were going out of the championship, and suddenly then we were back in it. Clare thought they were gone through, and suddenly they had to come back and face us again. And I think it gave us a huge lift, and it probably dejected Clare a little bit, I would say, you know. And like for that game in Thurles, and I've said it loads of times, I think Christy Todd said he sold 14 or 15,000 tickets for that game.
Like
never done.
I have never personally ever been at an Offaly game that I saw such an Offaly crowd, and the atmosphere in Thurles, and probably your finest ever day in an Offaly jersey that people would have seen.
That's right, and just one of them days where everything went right for me, Brian. You know, it was, I suppose, 84 in Thurles was a great day, but 98 was probably an even better one.
Thurles is a happy ground.
Yeah, it was. So
that was some win, wasn't it?
It was, and like I'll never forget driving into Thurles that day on the bus before the game, and when we turned into the square in Thurles, it was like a Mardi Gras. There was people everywhere. It was just, and they were banging on the side of the bus, but we were up for it, and we had the work done and the training done, and our team had strengthened up as well with each of the matches that we played. You know, we were kind of.
But there was a confidence and a focus about Offaly that day in Thurles, wasn't there?
There was. But we were cool and calm and determined. We had our backs played brilliant. They were fierce, disciplined, and didn't give away any frees much. And just were tight, and did the basic stuff, and we and Johnny Pilkin in the middle of the field played very well, and then we got a few scores up front, and everybody I got a good few points, but everybody contributed. Yeah.
And I suppose that was you couldn't go to an All Ireland final against Kilkenny after what you'd been through and what the Offaly supporters had done for you.
Yeah.
And let them down, and you didn't.
No,
there was never really much of a doubt in the final, even the early stages. Again, but in the second half, Offaly were always.
Yeah, to beat Clare after 3 games, and Clare were double Munster champions and All Ireland champions. So the first time that an Offaly team ever beat a Munster team in the championship, really, in a big game. So then we were facing Kilkenny, the first time ever to play Kilkenny in an All Ireland final, and if we lost that, all the work we did against Clare would have been for nothing. So it was brilliant to beat Kilkenny in the final, and it was a real workmanlike display by everybody, and obviously Brian Whelan got the goal near the finish, but Joe Dooley played a huge part in that game. He scored a goal and set up the last one for Brian, and but everybody played well. It was just
one of those days.
Yeah.
Joe, we just move along because obviously you're coming to the end of your tether. One or two most great memorable games. I suppose the '99 semi-final against Cork when we were probably nearly robbed, but we avenged that in 2020 with a fantastic win over Cork to have a final meeting with Kilkenny. But some Offaly were still boxing well above their weight.
We were, yeah. So we I suppose as a team we'd feel we left maybe 99 behind us because we had Cork kind of. I suppose I think we were leading Cork by 3 points at half time when really we should have been about 6 up. Dickie Murphy gave Cork a couple of handy frees before half time and kind of kept them in touch. And it proved crucial in the end. I think Cork beat us by 2 or 3 points in the end. But
2000 revenge was
2000 in revenge was very
one
sweet,
of the probably biggest upsets. Cork were highly fancy.
They were hot
thought they'd only had to turn up. Yeah,
and we had, I suppose Martin Hannamy had retired and Billy was gone in 2000 and John Troy. So we were Hubert Rigney was gone as well. So we were missing a lot of our. Nearly a third of our kind of.
Likes of Gary Hanifey was coming stood up that day, and players like Gerard
Murphy and Simon Whelan and a few like that came in, and John Ryan, so Niall Claffey. But we to beat Cork again. Cork Offaly had never did that before, and you were beating a Munster team and a good Munster team, and to beat them was very, very sweet. But we just didn't. I suppose Kilkenny were too good for us in the final. They had lost 99 All Ireland and 98.
They were hurting,
They were hurting, and they just were too sharp for us on the day. Yeah.
Joe, you finished up soon after, and you ended up managing Offaly. Some great memories there because. Unfortunately, we've gone downhill since, but there was 1 or 2 glimpses in between.
Yeah, I did 4 years with Offaly, 2008 to 2011, and there were tough years. Managing a county team is very, very tough, especially if you want to do it right and leave no stone unturned, which I felt I did. And we had a good team at the time, and we were very, very close. We drew with Galway in the Leinster Championship, and they beat us by a point in the replay, and they were in the All Ireland final the following year, and should have won it. So they were a top team. We beat Limerick a couple of times, and Cork beat us by a point in my last game with Offaly. So we were very, very competitive at the time, but we were putting the work in and the training in, and in fairness to the lads, they were very, very determined and very committed. So, but you just couldn't stay doing it. Personally, I couldn't. You really need to be full-time at it, to be honest.
And it's unfortunate to see where we are today.
It is, yeah. It's
when you talk about, we're after talking about all the glorious matches and wins, it's disappointing to see where we are.
It's terrible that it has slipped to where it has slipped, and we shouldn't be where we are. I think it's a disgrace, to be honest with you. And we're down playing Sligo, I think, in this year's championship, and no disrespect, and Roscommon, I think, and Mayo, no disrespect to those people, but jeepers, to be down at that level is terrible, but hopefully, a lot of work has been done at county board level with new coaching officers being put in and all of that. So hopefully in a few years' time we'll get back up there, but we may just dust ourselves down now and get out of the division we're in and just start setting ourselves targets and meeting them and get back up there.
Just before we go, Joe, in the next few minutes, on a personal level, you met the love of your life, a Cork woman.
That's right.
And maybe fill us in about your family and where you're living and where you did live.
Yeah. Well, obviously, my wife Marie is Cork. I met Marie in Dublin when I was working in Dublin many years ago. The Garda Club. Yeah.
There was a lot of marriages made in the Garda Club.
There was, yeah. So anyway, Abbott and Asher, just
three
We've had,
wonderful children.
Yeah, three, yeah, Shane, Aideen and Eve, and we've two grandchildren now, Molly and Kitty, and so sure, time moves on, but it's great, and like obviously Shane has been
Carrying on the tradition.
yeah, for the last 14 or 15 years, and like we're very proud of the way he has played and the effort he's put in for Offaly, and
Yeah.
you know it's been great times, you know, like.
And you gave the people of Ballinagar a great lift, Joe. You lived out there for a couple of years.
That's right. Yeah, I was in Ballinagar. We were in Ballinagar for 10 years, I suppose. Like
Yeah.
Shane went to school out there up until he was maybe 10 or 11 years of age. So they claim him anyway, whatever about me, you know. So and we had great nights in Ballinagar after winning, you know, Leinsters and All Irelands and even county finals with Clarine. We brought the cup down to Ballinagar on a couple of occasions. So great people out there and a great place. Yeah.
Yeah. And your mother, thankfully, full health and everything well.
Yeah, like my father passed away in 2000. Yeah, he got sick and passed away, and we were all very, very heartbroken over that. But my mother's in great form. She's 70, heading for 79 years of age now, but she's in great health and got the vaccines last week, and so she's happy now that she can get out and about a bit. Yeah,
it's unbelievable to see what we're in at the moment, Joe, isn't it? Like COVID, and you know the way it has brought down different things. But maybe advice for the older people that's out there. Maybe what would you say, or what do you find, and what's the mood out there?
Well, I think like COVID has really, I suppose it's been a wake up call for everybody. You know, it kind of it's nobody saw it coming. No, anywhere in the world, I'd say, to be honest. It's you know, like I suppose the downside of it is how it's hitting businesses and even maybe on the mental health of people. But the big plus side is I think it has kind of slowed everybody down, and people maybe have a bit more time now to kind of spend with family and just kind of enjoy the more basic stuff in life, you know. So, but hopefully, like the vaccines are coming now, and I think everybody will be covered hopefully with the vaccine, you know, within the next couple of months. But we're always going to have probably a little bit of the COVID with it, you know.
Yeah,
but
we have to learn to live.
Learn to live with it. But I think you know it's you know, it has been a wake up call for everybody, and hopefully we're coming out the other side of it now at this stage.
And a couple of little songs about you, Joe, the famous Joe Dooley one, and then obviously you were out at the start of the pandemic and you were on a bit of a walk and you were telling people to wash their hands and sing the Joe Dooley song. So people fond memories of Joe Dooley.
That's right. Yeah, the Brownie Guinan and Stars and P45 brought out the Joe Dooley song back in the mid '90s, and I didn't even know it existed myself until after one of the All Irelands. But anyway. And I do sing it an odd time myself then when
you're in good humour.
Yeah, when I'm in good humour, and I did try and do my bit for the COVID and the hand washing and stuff there, alright, yeah, but anyway.
But Joe, you started some decades of hurling, and your own club Clarine, you won many a county final for such a small parish. Maybe before we finish, just how many did you win in Clarine, and just tell people what it meant to a small little parish like that.
Yeah, like Clarine is only. Well, when I was growing up, there was probably about 400, little over 400 people in the parish. You know, we're the smallest parish in Offaly by a long way. So, but with great people in it, obviously, and great families, and all down the years, I think we've won 3 or 4 junior championships, and we'd won an intermediate, but we had never won senior. We played in a couple of finals. So then, when in the mid '80s, then I suppose when with the Coughlin's and ourselves and the Connorses and the Maroneys and Kevin Keenan then came a bit later, and Johnny Abbott and Noel Bergen and lads like that. We all grew up together, and obviously we got to a county final in '85 and Kennedy beat us, and then we got to one in '87 and Ryan's beat us by a point. But we made the breakthrough in 1988, and that was a huge win for us, like to win our first ever senior county championship. And I was training the team at the time, but then in '89 we lost to Lusme, beat us with a last minute goal. Or beat us in '91 and beat 94. Then we got back and won 95 and 96 and 98. So we played in 11 county finals and 2 replays, 13 county finals.
It's some achievement for a small parish.
Yeah, over a 16, 17 year period, and with basically the same core bunch of lads, you know, backboning that team for that length of time. So,
and apart from a couple, maybe 4 or 5 families, really.
Yeah, that was it. Yeah, there was 5 Dooleys and 5 Coughlin's, and there was 4 Connorses and, you know, 3 or 4 Mulroneys, and so it was kind of that, and everybody. But the big thing about Brian was all that time, and I've said it loads of times, is that everybody pulled together, and we never had a wrong word between us, you know, and it's grand to be able to meet all those people still and talk about old times and that. But it was a great period for the club, and club is still going strong, you know, and always will, because they know nothing else up there in Clary than the hurling,
Yeah.
you know, like there's no other distractions. So
Well, Joe, it's been a pleasure, and we'd like to thank you for your time for the Offaly Libraries, and we want to commend them on the work they're doing for the older generation. Little packs, I've seen them given out to people, and story time and different things. And the library is very, very important for the people of Offaly.
yeah, all the libraries in Offaly, they're providing a great service, and especially nowadays where people need to, you know, access internet access, and you know, it's just a great service that's being provided. And I want to wish everybody well in Offaly Library, in all the libraries across the county. So, and I'm delighted to be supporting this Bealtaine Festival as well. Yeah.
Well, Joe Dooley, it's been a pleasure, and thanks very much for your time.
Thank you, Brian.
When the ball's in the sky in Crow Park in July, that's Joe Dooley. When the ball's in the air, who's that man in the square? That's Joe Dooley. What a boy, pride and joy of Offaly. He's in gold, white and green from the fields of Clarine. That's Joe Dooley.